Samuel L. Jackson is here. He is the highest-grossing actor of all time with over $10 billion in worldwide ticket sales. His newest film, The Hateful Eight, is his sixth collaboration with writer-director Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino has said that Jackson is, quote, one of the greatest actors to ever say my dialogue. Here is the trailer for The Hateful Eight. You like it?
That's a wonderful trailer.
It is. Well edited, fast-paced.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Makes it look like an interesting movie.
It is. And you know what's great about it, though? I mean, you start here. It's really pure Quentin Tarantino dialogue.
Yes, very much so.
You know, it's his hallmark.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then seeing people that you haven't seen in a while, like Kurt Russell. Mm-hmm. You know, casting, everything about it.
Yeah. And Bruce was great in Nebraska, but
Bruce Dern playing the Confederate, and his son, looking for his son.
So perfect, from all the old Western references we have. And everybody in that room has seen Bruce Dern in a movie, playing probably the worst person in the movie, because that's what he did. He made his stamp, playing bad guys. So it was so great to have him there and have Quentin talk about the films that he'd done. Between takes, Quentin would talk to Bruce about films that he'd done or reference them or recast this movie with people from Bruce's era in terms of who everybody would be in the film. It's just awesome.
What is it about you and Quentin?
I have no idea. I just think that the fact that I did so much theater and I loved language, and I spent a lot of my youth or childhood sitting on the porch with my grandfather at night listening to radio drama. So I learned how to use words, or what the power of words or the rhythm or beauty or music in telling a story actually was, and I loved doing it. And my grandfather would tell me stories, and he would make me make up stories to tell them. So I learned to do that through listening to Sergeant Preston of the Yukon and Andy Griffith tell stories, or, The Shadow or The Whistler.
And the story about the football game in Carolina. You remember that story Andy Griffith told? A wonderful story about what they called, what it was football.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
And did you decide there that, man, what I want to do is where I can use language?
I did not decide that there, because that was not one of the career options I was ever given. In terms of being a wordsmith or doing that, you were taught you want to grow up and have a reputable job: teacher, lawyer, doctor, preacher. So when I said I was going to be an actor, it kind of shocked everybody. My mom said, "So what are you going to do for a living?" Yeah. Until she saw my first commercial, and she said, "Oh, my son's an actor."
But what was the big break?
Big break, I guess. When they created Best Supporting Actor Award at the Cannes Film Festival, and I received the Palme d'Or for Jungle Fever, the call from Hollywood came up.
Spike Lee.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant performance, too.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, you were.
I'd done the research. But,
And so it was the movies rather than the theater. After that.
Well, that was the goal.
Yeah, always movies.
Well, I watched movies all my life. I spent all my life going to the movies every Saturday. That's what I did. I sat in the movie theater all day long.
Saying, I want to be up there on that screen?
I didn't know I wanted to be up there. I know I enjoyed the stories. I know I enjoyed going home, doing the movie that we'd seen with my friends and putting our guns on and playing, John Wayne or Roy Rogers or whoever, or running from Frankenstein or Dracula or King Kong or Godzilla. We played all those games, or making bow and arrows and being Robin Hood. We did those things.
But here's what Quentin says. You're the only actor he will let play with his dialogue. Mm-hmm. You're the only guy that he'll allow to even touch his stuff.
Yeah.
So that why should I be surprised? You're saying?
I don't know. I don't know that that's a surprise. I do know that when I read something he's written and I've thought about the character and I've analyzed it, I read the script endlessly. I read it over and over and over and over again, and then by the time we start rehearsal, I have an idea of who physically the character is, because I try and make that up. And talk to Quentin about who I think he is physically, so we have that conversation, so that when...
What does he wear, how he walks, everything?
Yeah, what he wears, what his hair looks like. all those things that I like to make up for a character. I have that discussion with him so that when I'm visualizing the character, when I start to read the script for the, 25th time, I have that character. I can see him on screen in the film. And as I see him and I read the words, then I realize, okay, if this person is saying it, he would say it this way. So I make a note. I don't just willy-nilly show up on Quentin's set and say something that he hadn't written. So you go, wait, what is that? I'll go to him and say, look, I think I know what you mean here, but you ought to say it this way. And he'll say, well, read what I wrote. Okay. Now say it the way you want to say it. Okay, I like it. Keep it.
If his ear likes it, he'll keep it.
Keep it. Or he'll say, no, say it the way I wrote it.
And you accept that?
Yeah.
You don't argue for it? Mm-mm. Now, the way this character's dressed, it's winter, it's cold.
Yes.
Really cold.
Yes.
Was that the costume that you imagined?
We went through several iterations of that costume because he actually lives on that mountain. Right. So at one point, Quentin had envisioned him as more of a mountain man. So he had on a different coat and he had leggings on that were made of fur and all this other stuff. In my mind, I'd seen him as Lee Van Cleef for a very long time.
Yeah.
So when he finally got to the Lee Van Cleef thing, I was like, okay, now we're finally on the same page. The black suit, the white shirt, the red tie, under the old army coat that was his, that he worn during the war, with his black cavalry boots still on.
I love the part about the letter from Lincoln. Explain that.
We're in a time that's post-Civil War. And
like the 1860s, early 70s.
Yeah, maybe 5-6 years after the war. Right. And to have an interesting item like that can either be a cause for conversation or a cause for a fight, right, in an interesting sort of way. And especially for a person
in the South, it's a cause for a fight.
Yeah, especially for a person like me to have it.
Yeah.
And considering my history with the Confederacy. So having that letter.
Your character had fought the Confederacy.
Yes. And had a bounty on my head, right, a bounty placed on my head by the Confederacy because of my proclivity for killing them.
Yes.
That thought was a funny thing.
Yes.
So to have that letter and to run into the right person of the dominant culture was an entree for me, right, to meet those people and have them look at me a different way.
Everybody you met who knew about the letter thought about the letter.
Yes.
Talked about the letter.
Talked about
wanted
the
to
letter.
see the letter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's a great thing. I mean, if I had a letter from President Obama and I told people, yeah, I walk around with a letter from President Obama, people go, oh, wow, can I see it?
See it.
A personal letter, not just one of those form letters.
And how do you know the president? That's what they
exactly.
would ask.
Yeah, exactly. That's the conversation. How do you know
him?
him?
Know Lincoln?
Yeah, exactly. And I said, well, we never met, but he knows my war record, and we were pen pals.
But back to Quentin.
Why somebody would believe that's beyond it.
Yeah, it was a stretch.
Yeah.
But back to you and Quentin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is one of those things that works. It's like De Niro and Scorsese.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I like that comparison.
Yeah.
Yes,
but it's true.
Yeah,
I mean,
very much so.
What is it?
I think we have a similar respect and love for the cinema.
Yeah.
And cinema played a big part of both of our young lives, our childhood lives. He spent a lot of time in the movies. I spent a lot of time in the movies or watching television, entertaining myself. We're both only children. I don't know that he read as much as I did, but I read a lot. He
was watching videos.
Yeah, when he finally got to that place. Yeah. But I had a great desire to get out of the place I was in into a place that I thought was better in the world. That I knew there were places in the world that were better than Chattanooga, Tennessee, that were different, that I wanted to see and explore, and I read about them.
A better
before
place
I
for you
got
to stand to find your dream.
Of course, definitely. There was nothing in Chattanooga, Tennessee that was going to allow me to grow in the way that I knew I wanted to grow, or that wasn't going to get me killed if I expressed that idea.
Yeah. So you wanted to go to New York or L.A.?
I wanted to go Chicago. I wanted to go to the world.
Right.
when I graduated from high school, I applied to a lot of colleges, but I also filled out a form on a merchant ship because I wanted to see the world, and my mom found it. She found a letter that came back saying, you know, that they needed some more info before they could actually give me this job. She said, "What job is this?" And I was like, "Well, it's kind of a ship that's going to be going around the world." She's like, No,
is your mother alive now?
No, she passed 2 years ago.
And so she got to see everything.
Oh, she got to see a lot. Yeah,
I mean, she got to see her boy.
Yeah. She was at the ceremony when I got my star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood, and all of those things, and she went to a couple premieres.
What did she think about Pulp Fiction?
She didn't understand why John Travolta died and came back in the movie.
She didn't get that.
She didn't get that whole time adjustment thing.
When you read that script, did you know this is going to be?
Of course not. I read it, and I thought it was something that my friends would like. I knew I loved it.
Yeah.
I actually read it, cover to cover, and took a breath and laughed to myself and just flipped it over and read it again to make sure I wasn't fooling myself. I said, this can't be this good. Yeah. I've never read anything like this in my life. And I said, well, if Harvey Weinstein lets us shoot what's in here, it's going to be a great movie. I don't know how many people are going to like it. I had no idea that it would have crossover appeal the way it did, or lasting power. It's like every year I get...
It's a classic.
Oh, yeah. It's like every year I get like 10 million new fans because there are all these kids who come of age and their parents or their big brothers let them watch it for the first time. Yeah. And they think it's the coolest thing they've ever seen in the world.
Yeah. And how many movies has Quentin made?
He's made 8 movies.
8 movies?
Yeah.
Now, should we have expected him to have made more? Or does it take that long to make a good movie?
I don't think so. I think your average director makes 12 to 15 movies in his career. Good ones. They're usually the person on set that's had the least amount of experience of everybody who's there. Everybody else has been on way more films, especially the actors and the crew members. Yeah, totally.
Now that you made so much money and have been so admired and can do anything you want to, is there something you have always wanted to do that you may at long last take time to do?
You mean other than what I do?
Yeah. On theater, to come to Broadway.
I was on Broadway 2 years ago.
I know. But to come, I know that. But I mean, I'm saying,
do I want to come back?
Yeah.
Sure. I'd love to come back and do a play. I just need to find the right play.
What's the right play?
I don't know.
But there's not one that you've always wanted to come back and do?
No. I don't have a desire to be Lear or Othello or any of that stuff. No.
Do you have any desire to be Jordan Spieth?
Yeah, at least one day. At least one day in my life, yeah.
Yeah.
I really wish.
I would have said Tiger, but
well, not anymore. Yeah. Well, but I would take a good 10 years ago Tiger Day.
Yeah, I would too.
You know, but I would just like to go to the golf course one day, and everything I know how to do well goes with me.
Yes. What's the best round you ever had?
Best round I ever had was 2 under par.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is acting different for you now? Or is it the same process? It's the same concentration? It's the same, or does it come easier? Do you know how to access yourself better?
I do know how to tap into those places that I need to tap into better and more readily. I don't change the process because the process got me here. So there are certain things that I have to do. I have to sit, I have to read the script, I have to live with that character, I have to know where that character came from, who his parents were, where he was born, where he went to school, if he went to school.
That's called the backstory?
Yeah. Did he go, was he in the service? What kind of serviceman was he? Just for me.
To know, to get inside him.
What kind of friends does he have? What kind of food does he really like, you know?
And what does that tell you? It just tells you who he is.
It informs me of a whole human being. It gives me a whole person to show up on screen with, a person that's been places and done things, so that when I arrive on screen, you know I'm coming from somewhere, and when I leave, you know I'm going somewhere that's important also. And that I have another life that may have nothing to do with anything that's going on in that story. So it helps you carry yourself in a different way.
Do you get inside that character and get inside the lines by just reading it over and over and over? I mean, pretty much having read it 25 times, do you pretty much know it in a broad sense?
Yeah, I know it by the 4th or 5th time I've read it.
You know it in terms of the whole
of my lines, and by the 15th or 20th time I've read it, I may be able to recite it.
By the 15th or 20th time. You don't sit there and just go over and over the same line.
No.
You just read through.
Yeah, and read the story, so that the story becomes.
But you think that's a gift?
A whole. I've never perceived it as such. I always thought it was just a process because it's always what happened when I was doing theater.
Then explain to me talent. If it's more than, I mean, it's got to be more than.
Talent is having some innate ability to interpret dialogue and emotions and being able to present them to people in a very honest and real way. But you also need what's called a foundation. I mean, everybody needs, you need a good grip.
Right.
Yeah, great stance.
He had a good swing.
So you got to know upstage, downstage, dominance, submission. You have to understand the tools you're given by. There are rules in the theater. There are rules in acting that you have to live by.
But did you get it by doing it rather than by going to classes?
I got it by doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, by the time I got to New York, I had done so many things. I was a theater major, so I did a lot of theater in college with the Morehouse Spelman Players. We had our own street theater company called Black Image Theater. Then I did an improvisational children's theater across town at the Academy Theater, and I was also in an improvisational structured theater or repertory theater. And what else did I do? I had another theater company that we started called, can't even remember the name of it, but that was another company that we'd started. So I did a lot of different kinds of things, preparing myself to dive into this big New York theater pool. So when I got here, I immediately went to work off Broadway, and then I started working in Manhattan Plaza to pay my bills, but I didn't go to class.
Yeah.
And I would always ask these people, or people would ask me to audition with them for a certain school, and I would do their piece with them and go, and they wouldn't get into school, but whoever was running the school would always offer me a scholarship.
Because you already had the chops. You had the muscle.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm good, And then I'd ask people, well, who are you taking class from? Well, what have they been in? Yeah. Have you seen any of their work?
Yeah.
It's like, there's a reason they're charging you to teach you how to act. You know that, right?
But could you teach what you know?
I probably could, but I'm not patient enough for it. Yeah, I'm very impatient. My wife is very good at that. She helps kids all the time.
They say that about athletes. They say that the best, like it was said about Ted Williams, he wasn't a great manager.
Right.
Because he didn't quite understand how come you didn't.
Why don't you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you have?
Yeah.
Why can't you do it like I do it?
Yeah.
Because he didn't know how not to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I wouldn't be good at that.
All right, I want to talk about Major Warren. Roll tape. Here is the first clip. This is Major Warren Major Marquis Warren, trying to get a ride into town aboard John Ruth, who's played by Kurt Russell, in a surprising performance on his stagecoach. They are both bounty hunters. Roll tape. It's just great. Now, you made the point. Former cavalryman. What do you see in the scene connected to the horses?
Well, they're the animals that are, moving that wagon along. I like horses. I'm looking at them. I'm admiring them. Yeah. How strong they are. The fact that they're, out here in this weather and withstanding it. My horse has died, and I do need a ride. So I got to figure out, what angle I need to use to get inside that wagon. Fortunately for me, we met before. John Ruth and I met and had a steak dinner together in Chattanooga, Tennessee, of all places. And he's seen my Lincoln letter, so I've got an entree already.
He knew you. Yeah. Another roll tape. This is Major Warren and John Ruth again talking about their different bounty hunter style. This is fascinating. That's acting. That's great script. It's shot well.
I mean, to have that stuff coming out of your mouth. I mean, you're actually talking about yourself. Yeah. You're expressing your philosophy about, your job.
Yeah.
Your job. It's like, no, I don't do my job the way you do it.
Exactly.
No, I'm not trying to work that hard.
You want to hear them hang.
Yeah, it's like office talk. You're standing around the cooler.
Intrigue us about what is interesting about Major Warren.
The interesting thing about this guy is he was a good soldier. He's an ex-slave who enlisted in the war, when he realized it was a very valid excuse to kill white people, having been in slavery. And as they say in the film, I don't think the whole blue and gray of the thing mattered to him very much.
It was black and white?
Yeah. It
race.
was an opportunity for him to gain a measure of power that he never had. You put a gun in his hand, and he's a pretty ruthless individual.
But he'd also seen hard things.
Yeah.
And he wanted revenge,
Well,
too.
he grew up in slavery.
Right.
So naturally, he has a whole nother way of looking at the world. You know, it's like when people vilify me online.
But for this film or for what?
For anything, for whatever. I mean, I got vilified, I guess, last week for something I said about the Santa Barbara shooting. You know, when I said I was sitting in Hawaii on set.
You mean the San Bernardino?
I mean, yes, San Bernardino shooting. I was in Hawaii on set watching it on Fox News. For some reason, I was watching Fox.
I was going to ask you that.
And they were talking about the people, but they hadn't identified them. And I said that as I sat there, I hoped that it was just another crazy white person with a gun and not, you know,
not a terrorist act.
Not a terrorist act.
Yeah.
Because that's something I could process, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to think that all of a sudden we were going to have another group of people. We were already afraid of terrorists already, but to validate that would endanger a whole nother group of people that we hadn't been, you know, really bothering with. I mean, the Muslims that live in this country have their way of living, and we trust them in their religion in that way. But all of a sudden, I felt like once they got identified as Muslim, every Muslim in this country became suspect by a certain group of people in this country.
Some in politics.
Yeah, and I didn't want that to be the case.
Yeah, so
I figured that if it was just another crazy white dude, that's something we'd already processed, and we know how to handle that.
We've seen that before.
Yeah, and we seem not to vilify them in the way that we would vilify some other, you know, ethnic group.
How do you respond to all that? Do you really?
I don't. You know, I read it and I realize I understand why someone would have that idea, that they would think I'm racist. But I grew up in segregated Tennessee. Very segregated Tennessee. And I was in this country and I saw the signs and I heard the words, and I lived through the civil rights movement in terms of what the hate looked like, what it felt like, what it sounded like, and what it felt like to me when I was a kid and growing up. So when I say things, I say them from a place of I've seen this picture before, or I've heard this hate before, and I understand what it is. So when I say things like, I hope it's not this person or that person, you know, it's like I sit at home and watch crimes happen on the news, and I say to myself, gee, I hope it's not a black person, you know. And I don't know that white people sit at home and watch the news and hope things like that.
Yeah. There's a scene here in which he's out in the snow, and there is a young man who's a son of the Bruce Dern character.
Yes.
Right. And how you end his life.
Yes.
In the cold.
Yes.
Any reaction to that scene as you go around talking about the movie? And did you have a reaction when you first saw it in the script?
I laughed the first time I saw it in the script. I was kind of like, wow, Quentin, come on. Well,
where are you going here, Quentin?
Yeah, what was that? We had a lot of discussions about it.
I would imagine.
The first being, am I telling this story to General Smithers just so I'll have an excuse to kill him?
Right. That's the Bruce Dern character.
Because they've already told me I can't just kill him, because I wanted to just kill him when I met him, and I realized who he was, and I realized he had killed a whole company of black soldiers for no reason other than what he said. We didn't have time to care for him or feed him, so we killed him where they stood. And they told me if I killed him, they were gonna hang me. That's a possibility. You know, I look at Major Warren and I look at all those people in that room, and I don't think that would have happened. But he just didn't want to push it that far at that moment. So he concocts a tale as he lays a gun next to him to tell him, you know, what happened to his son, to make him go for the gun so he can kill him. So there's a question as to the veracity of that tale.
Right.
But it's a great tale.
It is. It galvanizes your attention, though.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Because you have no idea how this is going to end.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, we asked Quentin, we was like, who are you going to get to do this job?
Yeah.
And then we all thought about it. I said, oh, well, it's a Tarantino movie. There's some actor somewhere is saying to himself, naked in a Tarantino movie in the snow with Sam Jackson? Sign me up.
The Marvel character, have you signed a new contract?
No, I still have
7 movies to go.
No, 3, I think. 3 maybe left, yeah.
I mean, that's been a big payday for you, hasn't it?
No, actually.
Really?
It's been a big payday in terms of fan base or a new fan base. No. Well, I don't know what they make. The only person that makes a lot of money making those movies is Downey. Downey kind of got the gun to their head, so we can't get any money. He's got all of it.
And, you know, you're talking about directors and actors. Jennifer Lawrence was here the other day.
Ah, Jay, yeah, she's a good girl.
She's good.
She's great.
Really interesting. And she has that kind of relationship you have with Quentin, with David O. Russell.
Yes.
You know, same kind of thing. I mean, she said to me, you know, a lot of people call me and I don't take the call. If he calls, I pick it up right then.
Yeah. No,
and if he says, I'm thinking about this, I say yes.
It's great to have a relationship with somebody like that. I had the same relationship with George Lucas. Yeah. You know, or let me see, who else do I work with like that? Well, Rennie Harlan, I used to have that relationship with because I love working with Rennie in his action pictures. But yeah, there are people that you automatically say, sure, yeah, I'll do that, no problem. But
except you have that much respect for them.
Oh yeah. I mean, all Quentin has to say is, look, I'm sending you a script. And sometimes he won't even say who the character is, because when he was sending me Django, he actually didn't want to tell me that I wasn't going to be Django. Yeah. That you know, that window of opportunity for me to be that young gunslinger had passed by. Yes. And he said, well...
But he didn't want to tell you.
I don't want to tell you, but all right, well, the character's Steven. So, and I was like, well, who is Steven? He said, just read the script. He didn't even tell me. And sure enough, I read it. And I was sitting there staring at the script. And I called him back and said, so you want me to be the most despicable Negro in the history of cinema? And he was like, well, yeah. Yeah. It's like, okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Because it was that kind of challenge to me, and it looked like that kind of fun. Now, the disappointment in all that is that as wonderful as Steven is in Django, that's the tame Steven. He edited out all the really bad things that I did in the movie because he said, I don't want anybody to kill you. Because, you know, Steven's kind of a nasty character. And it seems like he has enough problem being vilified himself as a racist because he uses scripts that much or puts those kinds of words in a character's mouth. But, you know, I always tell people, I don't understand why they can't look at his work and realize that every character he's ever given me has pretty much been the smartest character in the film, that has the most dignity and respect and kind of runs things and is not a fool of any sort and understands a whole lot about what's going on in life and in the world. And for him to write characters like that for me would be impossible for a racist to do.
Yeah, there's no question in your mind there's no racism in Quentin Tarantino.
No.
What areas in Quentin Tarantino is a writer?
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Yeah.
I was on a plane across the country and we were leaving California like at 10:30 on a red eye. Mm-hmm. And we were both sitting across from each other. And at about 12, I cut the light off. I'm going to sleep from now until 6 o'clock. I woke up at 5:30. I look across. He's still writing.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't doing that. No. Not Quentin. He was doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Quentin does not keyboard.
Yeah, but before I leave you, I want you to take a look at this. This is Stephen Colbert last night. This is hilarious. It is a sense of Stephen at his best, and also Mr. Jackson doing some remarkable takes of great movie lines. Here it is. Man, that's a keeper, isn't it?
So much fun.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a joy to be here.
My pleasure.
All right.
Samuel Jackson. The film is called The Hateful Eight. It is getting a lot of attention, and especially as we approach Oscar time.